Hi everyone, welcome to another PC Online podcast series. This is our third series so far, and we appreciate your viewership right there, and you're following on all our pages, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, the whole works. We are the Post-Courier Online. I currently have with me a special guest. We all know that businesses are a very integral part of any society. More or less, Port Moresby is the capital of Papua New Guinea. And it's so vital that we believe in Post-Courier Online that we should have a proper conversation with our businesses. And one of the biggest peak bodies of business, probably not only in Port Moresby, but in the country, is the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce and Industry. And it's my pleasure to have with me the presence of the president of POMCCI, Mr. Rio Fiocco. Rio, welcome. Welcome.
Good morning, Matthew. Great to be here.
Rio, we'll kick off our conversation in a business-like sense. But let's start on a personal note. Who is Rio? You're the president. Just a brief introduction of yourself for our viewers.
Okay, well, I'm a lawyer by profession. I still have my legal practice here. The firm's called Fiocco and Nutley Lawyers. And I've been here over 35 years, so this is my home now.
Wow. Your presidency in the POMCCI, when did you first become president? How long have you been president?
I've been involved with the Chamber for well over 10 years. First I was the secretary, and about 5 or 6 years ago I was elected as president. Mm-hmm. So it's been a great challenge.
You represent a very big body. How many businesses are we talking, or members per se are we talking about?
Port Moresby Chamber is the largest chamber in Papua New Guinea. Lay, of course, being the second largest chamber. We would have nearly 300 members now, and these companies range from the big end of town, which is the likes of ExxonMobil and Total Energies and so forth, the mining companies, right through to SMEs. And we're actually trying to grow the SME membership because we see that as an important way for companies to grow their own businesses. The Chamber has regular business networking events, usually a breakfast every 3 or 4 weeks with a high-profile speaker, and these are great networking events. We also have cocktail parties and so on. So the whole idea is networking amongst the business opportunities and also the opportunity to talk to government. Mm-hmm. We were just present a couple of days ago when Governor Elizabeth Genia released her monetary policy statement, and these are all very important business issues for our members, particularly to hear what's happening with the Kina, mm-hmm. which direction is it heading, and so on. So,
very true. Port Moresby, the heart of the country, as people say, a business hub. How vital is the business community in Port Moresby, not only in connection with Port Moresby, but for the connection to the rest of the country? If you could explain to our...
Right. Well, you'll find that being the capital city, and this is where the Parliament is, and all the government departments are all headquartered here in the city. So most of the, if not all, companies have their head office here in Port Moresby, and that's because this is where the seat of government is. So whenever companies need to have meetings with their relevant minister or the relevant government departments, they're all based here at Waigani or in the city, and that's why the businesses have their headquarters here, mm-hmm. even though they may have their manufacturing base over in Ley or elsewhere. So as I said, it is the capital city, and this is where all the big decisions are made.
Mm-hmm. I think the other most important thing that a lot of you should also understand is businesses provide the most important part in our society, which is jobs. And I know your members provide a lot of those jobs, and it affects the daily lives of every Papuan to have an earning, whether it be in security or all the way up to corporate and all of that. Could you just emphasize on that importance of businesses as well?
Yes, it's the private sector that really drives the growth of the economy, and that of course means jobs, but more importantly it's the private sector that pays the taxes that keeps the police on the beat and the public servants, the teachers at work, etc. It's all coming from the private sector, the taxes that they're paying.
Okay, when you mention police and security, Rio, we had one of the darkest hours in this country's history, and that was in Black Wednesday, Jan 10, 2024. a lot of things were tested, and one of the most important one was security was tested to the fullest extent of it. When our police men and women decided to step down from their duties, and we actually got a glimpse of what chaos actually is. Where were you during that time? If you could just bring us back to that time, and we'll talk about the topic even a little bit more, but it's all about that personal experience. Where were you? What were you doing? And how did you come to know that this thing just popped out of nowhere?
Well, luckily for me, I was actually away on holidays in Brisbane. But I was getting regular updates as the situation developed. And it was really frightening to see, particularly to watch the online videos that were coming out. What was different from previous riots was the extent of the riots, which happened nearly in every suburb in the city, almost simultaneously after the police had stepped down from their duties that morning. But what was truly shocking was after the looting occurred was quite a number of the shops were burnt, and the supermarkets and so on, and that was really tragic for everyone, not only the businesses but the people themselves.
True.
And you just could see in the whole of Geruhu, the whole Geruhu shopping centre was burnt down, and it's really tragic because a lot of people worked in those shops, but more importantly the people who did their daily shopping there had nowhere to go, and then they had to go to the nearest shop was over at Rainbow Heights, or come to Waigani, Stop and Shop at Central, and so they had to travel quite long distances just to get their daily food supplies. So the people of Geruhu really felt it, but it's not just there, other areas, Sabama and so on, a lot of shops were burnt and destroyed, and it was really a tragic day.
Yeah. There were a lot of losses. I think some of the biggest losses obviously were the CPO group, who lost a couple of shops. We had Eliseo as well. And then Brian Bell got its big warehouse looted. And I saw the description of what the chief secretary said. He said it was almost like a bomb was dropped in the back of that very big warehouse that they had. We saw our society sort of turn in ways that we couldn't even imagine, and I was also confronted here because back here in the office we were trying to hold our editorial conference in my office on the other side, and back then, and then we had gunshots right out because everyone wanted to loot Dash Bash down the road. So you had one police vehicle telling the others go and loot, and you had the other police vehicle telling them come here, and they were shooting. So we had bullets flying around here. So that was sort of the picture we had in every part of the city, as Rio has rightly said. So then we could talk about the damages and the costs. How did the businesses, or whether I say make representation, or did they all come and complain to the chamber, or how did they rally in this time of crisis?
Yes, well, this is where the Port Moresby Chamber came to the fore. Our members and also companies that were not our members were asked to submit details of all their losses. And through ourselves and the peak body, which is the PNG Chamber of Commerce, led by Ian Taratia, we then compiled all of those claims and sent them into the Chief Secretary's office. And we've been following up constantly ever since then for the government support, which was promised by the Prime Minister.
Yeah. And I note that it took a while for the support to come through, and there were a lot of criticism out there from the general public and also members of the business community about how slow it was. But I think a lot of people didn't take the gravity of trying to justify and take stock of how much was actually lost, because there were some varying figures. We won't mention a lot of those figures because we don't know what was really, really lost and how each business defined that loss. But I know it was substantial. And then we come back to how government has now assisted. And I note that on the record, we've had a lot of stories about through the efforts of, rightly the Chief Secretary heading that committee that was created to look into this situation. It's been over 80 million now being dished out to businesses. A lot of you out there think that it's a free handout. But let's hear it from the business community, why that money was given and why it was given. You say it's public money, but we also have to consider what the losses were made. These businesses probably didn't ask to be looted, didn't ask to be burnt down. I mean, looting, yeah, you could have looted it, but to burn down entire infrastructure. And a bunch of people that went and looted also go and use these services on the average, mundane walk back and forth from home to buy things that are essential to their lives. Yeah. Just a little, what on all of that? Just your thoughts. Yeah.
Well, we're very grateful for the government for the support that they did give. Look, the total losses probably are closer to 1 billion kina. So the initial money that the government gave was approximately 15 million kina, and that was for employee support. And that is basically the government agreed to pay those companies who's lost or had to stand down their employees an amount of, I think it was the minimum wage, 350 kina or so, or 500 kina a fortnight, for 6 months. So that was an employee retention scheme, and that worked very well. And the money was paid out in a fairly prompt manner. Since then, the government has been slow in paying for second part of the phase of the payments was to clear the rubbish and debris and get the places ready for rebuilding. So money's been paid out to quite a number of companies for that. And the final part of the assistance the government has promised is to cover the rebuilding exercise. But the government's not going to give money for that. What the government is offering is concessional loans at a much reduced interest rate and so on. We're still waiting for the final details of that. In the meantime, quite a number of companies have got on with the business and rebuilt anyway. They've gone to their banks and they've managed to get the finance and rebuilt. A good example of that is the Papindo trading store at Gerahu. They got on and rebuilt, and that reopened, I think it was November last year. So, and that's great because the people of Gerahu can go to their local Papindo shop and do their shopping. But the other shops that were there nearby have not been rebuilt as yet. That will be a massive rebuilding exercise. Unfortunately, one of our good members, Brian Bells, a great taxpayer and employer of people, they haven't yet to receive any money. Their losses total over 100 million kina because their big, huge warehouse, they lost over 60 million kina worth of stock. And the building itself it's going to cost over 40 million kina to rebuild. So that was just one company alone. CPL and their supermarkets, they've suffered massive losses. They've received a small amount of compensation from the government, but like businesses, particularly in Papua New Guinea, they're strong, they're resilient, and they're bouncing back, and they'll get back on their feet. In fact, they're already back on their feet in no time. But we appreciate the assistance from the government. We would have, of course, liked to see some more assistance.
True.
But we also want to see the government follow through on the assistance packages for lending so the companies can rebuild, so the shops can be rebuilt and people can be re-employed and business can back to normal. And of course those companies hopefully will make profits in the future and keep paying taxes, so the money goes round.
Yeah, a very important point. The money goes round, everyone. Resilience, you mentioned, that was a key word that I wanted to bring up next, but you rightly said it. So much history with most of these businesses in our country. It goes far back. But I think the other thing that also was impacted, and I remember you mentioning it in one of your POM CCI events in relation to Black Wednesday, and you mentioned that now security has changed. Now you notice that some of the business now, where the fences, like just for the average viewer, where the fences were simple fences are now gone up a notch, being with more cement pillars. The fences are taller. I've noticed Stop and Shop rebuilding its fence around the Central Waigani supermarket, and also where the North Waigani building that was burnt down, there's a new, bigger and more reinforced fence. This people need to understand the cost of security. What is the situation of the cost of security, and as a result of Black Wednesday, how has that impacted the bottom line of our business community?
Well, yes, every business straight afterwards immediately looked at their own security situation, fearful that it may happen again. Let's hope it never does.
Sure.
But yes, businesses immediately upgraded their security. That means fencing, perhaps more static guards. In some cases, they would upgrade to CCTV cameras and so forth. So yes, security is it's a big cost to all businesses operating here, and of course that cost flows through to the bottom line, and it means unfortunately the price of goods has to increase. The other factor that we're seeing play out now is that a lot of companies put in claims for insurance, but insurance did not cover riots and civil commotion. So it's just that's the way it is with insurance policies generally. Some companies did have riot cover, but at the end of the day, those companies that have made claims, overall, we find that the cost of insurance this year, the premiums have gone up. And that's understandable because of the huge losses and the risks that the insurance companies make. So everyone's premium for insurance has gone up.
Sure. Then that leads us to issue of prices and price of goods and services. Everyone notices that everything just notches up. Prices are growing as we see over the years. Obviously, that's something that businesses can control but cannot control at the same time. We can say that. Just your thoughts on that topic of the increase in the price of goods and services, just for people to understand where the hardships are in terms of making those determinations on the shelves.
Right. Well, when you look at a supermarket, there's mainly two types of products: those that are imported and those that are manufactured here in Papua New Guinea. So let's just take a simple product, biscuits, for example. A couple of major biscuit manufacturers. One is here in Moresby, Paradise Biscuits, and over in Lae, the famous Lae Biscuit Company. So their cost of inputs, the flour and everything they bring in, the machinery that they use, and of course the power, which is a huge cost, because unfortunately we have a very unreliable service provided by PNG Power. We all know that. And these companies with very expensive manufacturing equipment, to run that equipment, they need to run their own generators during the working hours, because the PNG Power is just so unreliable, and in terms of the power and also the fluctuations. So companies are forced to run their own gensets. The cost of diesel is very, very expensive, and that means that the product they make, it's the biscuits or whatever, is quite expensive and much higher than it should be if we had a good, reliable power service.
Sure. Yeah, very much so. And then also that then leads again to the other issue that in order to bring these inputs, you need to have foreign currency, which is another big trending topic, and it's been ongoing for over a decade now. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's been going for over a decade. We've been writing stories about this continuously. Foreign exchange, the queues. A lot of people don't understand what a queue is, especially when you want to get foreign currency to make payments for imports. What is a queue, and what's the whole dynamics of businesses? Or if you could break it down for the simpleton out there.
All right. Well, there are companies here in Papua New Guinea that do exports. Logging and the agricultural companies. For example, the cocoa farmer, he sells his cocoa to companies like Agmark and Outspan and so on. They then export that cocoa overseas, for which they receive US dollars, and they bring those dollars back to their bank, and then their bank here converts those dollars into kina. So the banks, the commercial banks, are the ones that supply the foreign exchange to their customers, and they match off the exporters against importers. Companies like Brian Bell that bring in washing machines and fridges and so forth, they need typically to buy those in US dollars or maybe Japanese yen or Chinese RMB, whatever currency. But you can't pay for those overseas in kina. You generally are transacted through the US dollar exchange. So that's where that's in very simple terms. We have imports and exports, and when there's an imbalance in the supply of dollars back into the market, and this is what's happened in the last few years, or in fact since 2014, there is an imbalance, and that's why, just like anything else, supply and demand, there's more demand for dollars and not enough supply coming into the market here. Unfortunately, companies like Kumul Petroleum are not bringing all of their dollars back, or not enough of their dollars back from the sale of the gas. and so on. So this is exacerbating the problem. But the IMF came in probably 2 years ago now in conjunction with the government, and they're working very closely with the central bank, and we have now a crawling-like exchange rate mechanism. And as the governor herself said the other day, they believe the kina is still overvalued, although it's only in the single digits. The kina has been depreciating against the US dollars by 6-7% the last 2 years, and that trend is still on the downward trend. But I must say that businesses are quite a lot happier than, say, 2 years ago, because there now is more dollars available in the market, and the time period to receive your FX order to be filled, foreign exchange order, has now reduced, and I believe the latest figures I heard from BSP Treasury team is it's now 2 to 3 weeks, whereas previously that period got out to 6 to 8 weeks, sometimes even 10 to 12 weeks. So, and these delays cost business. When a company wants to order a new container load of, whether it's washing machines or flour from overseas, or tin baked beans, or whatever it is that the companies import for the supermarkets, they've got to wait in line for their own banker to get the dollars to then fulfill the order and pay the supplier overseas.
Yeah, and Rio, I noticed that, and I think all of you consumers out there would notice that at some point in time a few years ago, you would have looked at the shelves in the shops where the goods you had almost every week, at some point they were all missing from the shelves, and they'll pop up a week later. I think that was some of the impacts of what Rio just explained to all of us in terms of that. So Len, we've spoken about all these sort of things, the issues that have taken place. But then you mentioned the keyword resilience. And Papua New Guinea and Papua New Guinean businesses especially are a resilient bunch. Rio, what are the positive things that we should look forward to now, especially in 2025? In the midst of all the doom and gloom, how are businesses punching their way through, or as we may say, looking at the positives that are in front of us, the opportunities, mind you?
Well, as you know, this is our 50-year celebrations coming up in September. So there's time to reflect, but businesses are always forward-looking, and they're planning for the future, and the future does look bright. We have a very youthful population. We have quite a rapid population growth. It brings challenges, particularly for infrastructure, and particularly putting strains on our schools, not enough classrooms and hospital beds, etc., etc. But it also means opportunities. We have a youthful population. The government is trying to get more people to go on the PALM scheme, to work in Australia and New Zealand on farms, and I think that's really a great program. And we're already seeing from those people who are down in Australia or New Zealand picking fruits or working in abattoirs, that they're sending their dollars back. And hopefully when they do come back after 1 or 2 years working down there, they'll have a pile of money in their pocket, and then that will enable them to either buy a PMV bus or a taxi or start up a trade store or some other business. So that's one of the positive things that is happening now. The government, I think, we've got something like 1,500 people working in Australia at the moment under the PALM scheme. The government is committed to increasing that number. Okay. I know they want to see probably 8, even 10,000 people working in Australia, because already we have that many. There are that many people from the likes of Fiji and Tonga, 8 to 10,000 people working in Australia. So why can't we have the same number of people? True. And also in New Zealand as well.
Very true. And then you mentioned that PNG being a hub, and obviously being a hub, PNG, Port Moresby, mind you, being the hub, and obviously with Port Moresby being the hub, it also handles the big projects too as well. And we have of course some are delayed, some are still in the pipeline. Post-Courier is trotting along, trying to maintain in the midst of law and order situations. Everything leads back to POM. Just your thoughts on the big projects and the opportunities that are there that will impact Port Moresby as well.
Right. Well, we're all excited about the 50-year celebrations, particularly in September. It's going to be a very busy month. We will see, all the hotels will be fully booked out. So if you're coming to Moresby, quickly book your room now, or call up your Wontoks and reserve a bed, because there's going to be a lot of visitors coming in. So the first week of September is what's called Military Week. There'll be a lot of naval ships coming in from all of our friends, neighbouring countries. They'll also bring in some military aircraft. I think there's plans for an air show on the first Sunday in September. There'll be a naval sail past during that first week. So that's going to be really exciting. And then leading up to the actual independence celebrations, which will happen all around the city. NCD has just announced the program. So we're all looking forward to that. And the other thing we're looking forward to is the first Airbus A220 plane that Air Niugini is refleeting is due to arrive in September. And I'm told that the next month, in October, 2 more of these Airbus A220 planes will be arriving. And that's going to be a game changer for Air Niugini. These planes they're more fuel efficient. They take approximately 130 passengers. And they can fly to all the airports in PNG that the Fokker planes can land in. Not only that, they have an expanded range. So it also, once all these new, I think it's 10 or 11 Airbus planes that Air Niugini is getting in the next 12 months or so, and then they'll be able to look at possible new routes. These planes can fly from Port Moresby to Auckland, Port Moresby to Melbourne, Port Moresby to Perth, and so on, and even flights from Lae, for example, Lae to Manila, and so on. These are potential new routes that can be opened up once we get the new planes.
Definitely, and I hope all the delays too will be sorted out by the time all these planes on board. We all wish for that. Thank you, Air Niugini, in advance. Then the other big opportunity we have, Rio, and I think it's best we all talk about it, even today leading up to it, our NRL team 2028. Business community, how is its reaction to this? Do you see it as a great opportunity? We know sport is a unifying symbol to everyone, and having a team in the biggest rugby league competition, the toughest one, and the one that's worshipped by a lot of you, don't deny that. I know a lot of you love NRL. Just your thoughts on that through the business community.
Yes, businesses are getting excited by it. So there are quite a number of hotels being looked at to be built in the next few years. The team will start in the 2028 season, which is not too far away. So the NRL bid at the moment, they have bids out there for apartments for the players and their families, and also the coaches and all the support staff. So we're expecting to hear in the next month or two who is going to be the successful bidder to build those apartments. The NRL bid also needs what's called a high performance centre, one of these gyms that with all the equipment, a bit like the Turama one, but much bigger and much
flashier,
better.
I think.
Yes, yes. And also a full medical suites for the players, just in case the player or the family gets breaks a leg or whatever. That all the full medical facilities are available. So these are some of the upgrades needed for to have the bid work. And on top of that, the government's announced that the games will be played at the Sir Hubert Murray Stadium, and it will need to be upgraded probably to 25,000 seats. And I believe the Prime Minister will make an announcement later. It's probably going to be funded under a tax credit scheme. But that work will also have to start construction soon so that it's ready for the 2028 season. So there's going to be a lot of construction work happening there. As I said, there's a number of hotels being planned, one of which is the new hotel on the top of Parga Hill.
I wanted to ask about that.
The Radisson. Construction of that is supposed to start in the not too distant future. And I know there's other hotels that are also being looked at. So we want to, one of the areas that PNG is looking at to expand is tourism. Fiji just announced they've had 1 million visitors last year, and we're not getting anywhere near that number. And as you all know, we have a lot more things to see and do than Fiji does.
Very much.
But we do need to get our law and order under control. Sure. So when the cruise ships come in, that the people walking down the streets are safe, and so on. So we have tremendous potential in that area. Ecotourism, bird watching, surfing. All of these, they're niche markets at the moment. Sports fishing's another one. But these are areas we can really grow the economy by getting more visitors to come in. If you just look at China, for example, we now have 3 direct flights a week from Guangzhou to Port Moresby. But most of those people coming are business people. We're really not tapping into the Chinese tourist market yet. And they have a huge population. And if we can just get 0.5% of their travelling public to come and visit Papua New Guinea, we'll get a lot of visitors, and that will be good for the hotels and businesses and jobs.
True. Amazing stuff. You mentioned the SME community, the SME space. I think that's a very important part. I think that's where the businesses really touch the people and vice versa. How are they doing, our small SMEs, just from your view?
Look, I think everyone is doing it a little bit tough at the moment. There's not a lot of money around, and with the increase in prices because of inflation, and this is mainly imported inflation from overseas, with the kina going down and the cost of goods going up generally, you can see it at the supermarkets. What you used to get for 100 kina, you get a smaller basket of goods. We all know that.
Sure.
So it does affect the SMEs, whether they're selling Mary blouses in the streets or handicrafts or paintings and whatever. There's just generally less money around at the moment. So, of course, less money means not as much in sales. But businesses carry on, SMEs are carrying on, and hopefully things will pick up as we get more tourists and some of these big resource projects actually get started.
The big ones, So the big resource projects, we have some of them delayed, obviously, but not only them, we have also some of the businesses that have been household names in this country. The Brian Bells, you mentioned rightfully. And then also we had, the most unfortunate news of, businesses like Fletcher Moresby, deciding to pack it up and go, and, from the Chamber's view on, household names, like I'd never want to see Hebo go, or I never want to see Global pack up. All these names that we're building our roads, infrastructure. Some of the best buildings we've had are from Fletcher Moresby because of their quality. Just your thoughts on that a little bit.
Well, it is unfortunate that Fletcher Moresby have decided to pack up. But what they have said is that they are available to come back and work if they get a big job.
Okay.
They are going to focus more on the Pacific. But it is a competitive market. There's a lot more construction companies, mainly Asian companies, that are here now. But I think it's unfortunate when one business closes, but it also means there's other opportunities. Yesterday I actually met with a visiting company from Indonesia, and they're looking at opportunities here. So, there are other companies coming from other Asian countries, from India and so forth. They're all exploring the potential market here. And we do have a huge market. We've got a big population, 12, 13 million people, growing, and we've got a lot of new big resource projects coming. So businesses are looking at what are the future opportunities, not only in construction, but retail and manufacturing as well.
We'll conclude now, but I think we'll conclude with three of the most important aspects to operate any business in any country. And that comes down to 3 things. You have your water, and you rightfully spoke about the power situation, and also you have your roads infrastructure. In the Port Moresby landscape, what are your thoughts on all of that? You spoke a little bit about power, pain in everyone's head right now. And then what's the water situation like? And of course, roads and the quality of roads that impact a business climate or environment.
Well, we've had what I believe to be the wettest season that I've seen in my 35 years living here.
Very true.
So climate change is happening. And there is funding available for to upgrade one's climate facilities, infrastructure and so forth. So I hope the NCD and the national government take advantage of some of these infrastructure loans. The IMF has recently announced a facility for that. we need to build our infrastructure, our ports, our roads, our bridges to cope with these flooding events that are happening, rising sea levels and so forth. So, as I said, our roads are needing urgent repairs, and I know NCD is aware of it because I keep telling them to hurry up and fix the roads.
All
but
of us, yeah.
we all do. But it's also a cost to business because the delays in transporting from one side of town to the other. These are costs to business as well. But we hope that the governor does upgrade a lot of the major roads. Some of the roads are being done as we speak, particularly here in town on Evos Avenues being upgraded and so forth. So the whole infrastructure for the city needs to be improved. There's a new hospital plan for Gerahu, which is long overdue. Mm-hmm. So great opportunities looking forward.
And in terms of water?
We're fortunate in Moresby with our water supply is adequate at the moment, but I do know that KCH is looking at a second water supply for Port Moresby from Edavu, the new hydroelectric dam. And that will be water coming from the Brown River. So as the city is growing and with this population, we do need new water supplies, and that is being looked at, and hopefully there'll be some announcements made soon about a new water treatment plant being built for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Rio, so much. It's been a really, it's been a great pleasure having this conversation. I think that just a final message to everyone, especially in terms of supporting local businesses here, the workers that work for these businesses and the families that benefit from it. We should not be tearing down our businesses. And while we cannot guarantee that there won't be another Black Wednesday, our hopes and dreams are all that we continue to prosper as a city and as a nation by extension. If you could just make a shout out to everyone.
Well, I just encourage everyone to buy P&G made. Instead of buying biscuits made overseas, buy our local biscuits, our local coffees, chocolates and so forth. Because buying local supports manufacturing here and supports more jobs. So that's my message: to buy local, buy P&G made.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rio, for your time.
Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.